if you're worrying if you can't do music production with, let's say, the M2 without Macs, you can. So today we are testing the M2 Max 16-inch MacBook Pro in Ableton Live, and also I'm going to check out Logic later on because I got some really interesting results when testing this in different kinds of music production software and comparing it with the Ryzen system I have on the side here as well. First of all, before you really watch this video, you should actually watch the latest video I made about some kind of comparison here, the 7950X compared to the M1 MacBook Pro and the 7900X. Because I'm using the same project here I used in the previous video, and now I'm going to make a link on the top here you can click on if you want to check it out. But anyway, I have some different types of tests here. So I have this finished project, a track I have been working on, and I just added a few more tracks here on the side just to see how many tracks I could add before I heard any crackle. So in this project I'm just going by ear. I'm not going by the CPU meter on the top here. On the M2 Max, I figured that it would play about 57 extra tracks without crackling or making any strange noises. So the middle part here is pretty demanding, but I hear no crackle here. So the M2 Max is having about 56 extra tracks in addition to the regular track here. So if we go to the Ryzen system, the 79X system, it was actually 48 tracks without hearing any crackle. So in this case, the M2 Max MacBook Pro is better by ear at least. So the Ryzen 7950X system was able to have 48 extra tracks without hearing any crackle. But I wanted to try to make a scientific test as well. I wanted to see how many tracks each system could play without having the CPU meter on the top here lit up. So we are going to check that out now, and that's another thing. So on this track I'm just using a Serum synthesizer here with some unison, and I'm using a glue compressor and an EQ included in Ableton Live, and it's just a sequence of some MIDI notes playing. In this test I want to see if the CPU light is lighting up. And I was trying back and forth, and on the 7950X system I actually got up to about 88 tracks. But obviously now it seems like the CPU meter is lit up anyway. But if we try it a few times, I apologize the camera work here, but I don't want to have any screen recording while doing this because it will affect the performance. But if you see now it's playing, you can see that it's processing audio over there, and we don't have any CPU light on here now. So if you just try to restart it a few times, it looks like it's handling about 88 Serum tracks without the CPU meter lighting up. All of the projects here are running in 48 kilohertz, and the sample rate is 256. Okay, so 88 tracks here, but on the Mac, on the M2 Max in Ableton, I was able to get to about 58 without hitting the CPU light there. You can see it actually hits there now when I press start. So it's right on the edge. So now it's not hitting it. So if I just keep restarting it for a while, it's 58 tracks on the M2 Max. And both systems are running the VST3 version of the Serum plugin. It's the same version on the Mac as it is on the Windows machine. I actually made an Ableton project with the audio unit version of the Serum plugin just to see if that would give some more tracks, but it was the same. It would play 58 tracks. In Ableton at least, the Ryzen system can play about 30 tracks more. The Mac can play 58 tracks, almost 58. But we're not done yet. I wanted to try something else. So I made exactly the same project in Logic. In Logic we have, in audio settings here, we have 256 in buffer size. I have manually gone into processing threads and selected 12 and 8 high performance cores. Process buffer range here is at medium, so this is some extra setting that it's in addition to the buffer size. Project is at 48 kilohertz, and I'm using the Serum synthesizer here with the same MIDI clip, with the same patch, and I have added the stock compressor in Logic, so we can see the beach ball a little bit over here. It's actually quite a lot of tracks here. If you can see that we have 336 tracks actually. So as you can see in Logic here, we are just using the same setup. I'm using Serum here, using the same CPU test patch, and we have added the included stock compressor in Logic and a channel EQ on each track here, just as we have done with the Ableton project. And you can see right now we have 330 tracks actually. So that's quite a lot more tracks compared to the Ableton Live project. So if I play it back here now, and I think we are right on the edge before we get a system overload, so we have to kind of let it play for a while. And you can see here on the compressor that it's working, and you can see that the EQ is getting some data here as well, so it's processing some audio. And it's the same on each track here, right? We can let it loop for a while. And I think 330 was the limit before I got the system overload message. So you can see here on the mixer, every kind of compressor here is working, so they're doing something. And it's, yeah, it's going. 330 tracks was the max limit here on Logic, and that's the same project I was running in Ableton Live. And you can see here on the performance meter, it's actually roofing. It's on the roof here. But if we open the performance meter on the actual Macs, you can see that the CPU load is actually not the highest here. So it's not really taxing the system at the max, but that's kind of how it is with these music production softwares. It's really interesting because you can see that I don't know if really what's happening underneath all these DAWs, because you can see that we have the same settings. We have a 256 buffer size in Logic and 48 kilohertz in audio. And again, I apologize the camera work, but I just don't want to screen record here. And I have manually set this to 12 and not automatic. The only thing I'm thinking about is this setting here, process buffer range. I think this also has something to do with actually the buffer setting. So it could be that Logic is kind of dynamically increasing the buffer size without you knowing it, because Apple is kind of doing things you don't know they are doing sometimes. And perhaps if we go to Ableton here, if we set it, you can see here, it's set to 256 samples in Ableton, and in Ableton I guess it's 256 sample and that's it. Here you can see that in Ableton we have 88 tracks without hitting the CPU overload, and in Ableton or in Logic we have 330 tracks without hitting CPU overload. So yeah, I hope these tests gives you a little more insight in how the systems are working together. We can see that the 7950X, the AMD system, is perhaps a little bit better in some cases compared to the M2 Max, but it's not by much, and considering how much power a desktop CPU and comparing it to how much power a laptop CPU uses, it's kind of, I think it's a draw between the 7950X or the Apple M2 Max, but that's my opinion, and you can disagree if you want. It's a little bit difficult to test music production software because it's not like running Cinebench or running Prime. You kind of throw the CPU in the roof there and you get a number. It's a little more complicated, and yeah, if I made the same project in Ableton on the Logic system, I just used the same synthesizer with the same MIDI clip, same patch, and I just replaced the stock compressor and the stock EQ with the stock compressor and the stock EQ in Logic. The Logic system was able to play 330 tracks, so that's like 300, well, a lot of more tracks compared to the Ableton project. That said, none of these are really bad results. I mean, how many people use over 100 tracks? I mean, you can, if you're worrying if you can't do music production with, let's say, the M2 without Max, you can. There is no problems at all. And it's the same with the 7950X. I got a comment on my channel where someone was kind of regretting that they bought the 7950X, and I do not think you should regret buying the 7950X because the kind of M2 Max performs better. It's about what you want to do. If you want to game or if you want to do something else besides Apple stuff, you need a PC. If you want to play some AAA games or something, you should have a PC. You should have the 7950X with a NVIDIA GPU or AMD GPU. And if you are a casual gamer, just want to play some kind of easygoing games or something, you could definitely go for a Mac and just live fine with that. Especially these new expensive ones, they are really good. So I don't really have any conclusion other than I just want to document this and show you on this YouTube channel how this is working, and ultimately it's of course up to you if you want to use a Mac or if you want to use a PC. But if you want the best possible music performance out of your Mac and you're not sure what kind of DLW you want to use, you could perhaps look into Logic. I think Logic is better equipped to use the resources on these new modern Macs from Apple compared to Ableton. I don't have much scientific data to back up what I say. It's kind of my opinion, but it seems like that at least. Not saying that Ableton is bad in any way. I use it myself. I'm probably not going to stop using it. I'm still probably going to use it on my Mac as well. So nothing there. I really like it. But if you're new and you're just starting out, I think going for a Mac and Logic is a really solid choice. I hope this helped. Take care out there, and I will see you in the next one. Goodbye.